Hi, everyone. Today I'm joined by Luci Strong, author of the essay, How Not to Have a Birthday Party. Luci is born and raised in Mississippi and has a unique perspective that's been shaped by her Southern upbringing, where she infuses her writing with a distinctive charm. Luci has found her calling as a family nurse practitioner, where her passion for healthcare is evident in her focus on women's sexual and reproductive health, as well as primary care. When Luci's not caring for her patients, you'll find her writing stories, baking delicious goods, curling up reading the latest book, or binge watching her favorite TV shows. Welcome to the show, Luci. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk more about your essay, learn more about your amazing community that you've described in your essay. But first, I wanted to just start off talking a little bit about your writing experience. I would love to know what role writing, if any, has played in kind of navigating life experiences. Also, when you started writing, when you kind of developed a love for it.
So I've had conversations before with other authors, other writers, and I think a lot of people think about published works, but there's a woman that said, even your journals or poetry that you wrote from fifth grade, like that's writing too. So I include that now in my experience, even though it might never see the light of day. But I've been writing since like middle school. That was like my first journal, kind of dabbled in like poetry and stuff. It just kind of has evolved from there. Once I got to high school and college years, I was writing more stories or at least trying to. It's just kind of been a thing for me since I was young, and I continued it, and it helps me to release things, whatever stressors might be going on in life.
Yeah, that's great. It's a good point that you raise. There was a point where I was taking a class and it was like write a personal essay to publish. I was so worried about the publishing part that I actually stopped writing. And so I think sometimes when we're so focused on like it has to be perfect or go to something beautiful, it stunts us. So I think it's great that you're still journaling and processing in other ways. Maybe it does turn into something one day, but even if it doesn't see the light of day, at least you're using an external outlet to process, and it's helping you, which I think is really such a powerful part of writing. It can really help us heal and connect us with people. So that's great. Something that you shared was that you have a Southern background. So I'm curious if it has influenced your writing in any way or influenced the kind of stories that you want to share or tell the world.
So yeah, I think being from like born and raised in the South, particularly Mississippi, I feel like even whether I realize I'm doing it or not, there's always some part of home that I include in some of my stories, whether that's the location, how characters might interact as far as like dialogue, or even just how community is central to most of my stories. There's always going to be like a friend or two or some type of friend group involved. So yeah, it's a unique experience. I know Mississippi is a bad rap a whole lot. But that was home for me. Greeting people in small towns, everybody knows everybody, having 60 people in my graduating high school class. So all I've known really is closeness. So that translates over to a lot of my writing.
That's beautiful, especially I think during these times when community is so important and holding on to our roots. It's also really great when people can bring parts of their home into stories because, even if you haven't been to a place, it kind of can transport you there, give you a sense of what it will be like. So I always love reading stories from places I haven't been to because you get a little portal into a different type of culture, a different type of life that maybe you don't know. I think that's beautiful. Since you mentioned community, I am curious how your close-knit family, as you described it, has supported you through other life experiences. If you have a memory that you might be able to share where their presence in your life impacted you apart from this birthday that you've described in your essay.
Okay, that's a lot of moments. Because we're kind of all a group together. So, there might be moments where I'm having more one-on-one time with someone else. Regarding the people that I mentioned in my essay, Kendall and I, like I said, became sorority sisters. I'd kind of seen her around on campus before, but she wasn't really my friend. But I always thought that she was like a nice, cool person. Once we joined the sorority, it just kind of blossomed from there.
I think it's so great the importance that you place on your community. And I know you also mentioned in your essay that we're living in this time of individualism, which, as you noted, it can be really hard to create and sustain community. But you also mentioned that you have these new friendships, you have longstanding old friendships who you call your family, which I love. So I'm curious how these friendships have shaped you. And given that there is this individualistic nature to our society now, if there's anything that you would share for anyone who might be struggling to make meaningful friendships, things that have worked for you and crafting this community around you.
I feel like as I've aged, it has been harder to find friends. So most of my friends I've made have been in school. There might be like the one-off occasion where I go out and there's someone that I kind of vibe with and then we exchange information. But I think that the main thing is just like being intentional about time. Like if you want to get to know a person, whether it's like a random one-off experience, continue to reach out. And if that person feels the same, then they'll continue to do that too. But I think even with old, like long-standing friendships, as we've grown up, it has been harder to find times where we are able to get together. So we have to be really intentional about making, like carving out that time and being transparent too, because sometimes life can be life in or your job doesn't permit it. And so I think intentional, but also being transparent and being vulnerable to say, right now it's just not a good time. I think with most of the friendships that I've cultivated, that's kind of the policy that we have for each other is that like, I'm always able to give you grace because I definitely understand that sometimes it's just not the time.
Yeah, that's so important to be honest about that with people or to have people who are like, there's silence here, but that doesn't mean that there's the friendship is gone. You know, you're just taking some time. I think that's really important. So I think switching gears a little bit to your essay, you mentioned that there's this loneliness and disappointment that you felt on your birthday despite planning it, having these really high hopes for it. Now that you've had some time away from that event, is there anything that you've been able to pinpoint about what led you to having those feelings? Or is that something you were aware of before the experience, but pushed through for fear? I'm just curious, how you've reflected on that, having written about it, having the party planned and done at this point.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways I wanted to recreate the Savannah trip 2 years ago. So I had so much fun on that trip. Everyone was very open to it. We had a great time. I didn't feel that sense of like, this isn't what I want. It was very much what I wanted. And I think that might have been a problem because it's a different atmosphere, a different vibe. The Savannah trip was definitely less planned. We kind of ran into some things that we wanted to do. But I think this time, like, okay, now we're going to play games or now we're going to eat. I think having that structure really threw off the vibe for me. I think that night before, like everything that happened with my partner, that was when the snowball effect of like, maybe this isn't what I want. Like I was starting to doubt even the night before. The planning, I was like, I'm excited for this. What kind of food do y'all want? Y'all need me to send pictures of the attire for the evening? I was excited for that part, but then it's like we got to it and it just didn't start out the best. And then getting there and the house is a mess. Just continued to be like a sense of disappointment about the entire thing. Salvaged it at the end of the night, but I kind of felt like at that point the damage was done. But yeah, I think having to have more structure really killed it. I will say something about my partner. I appreciate him a lot. He very much shows up for me and still to this day. But I think disappointing him that night before, that really was a catalyst for me for the feeling of having qualms or feeling disappointed. That's when it really came. And so I think whether it's like friendships or romantic relationships, knowing that you hurt someone that cares about you gives you pause. I think like that's something that people should listen to. Obviously we discussed it after and I apologize because he didn't deserve all that. And so I think being able to have open communication with whoever it is, whatever relationships that you have, that's also important.
Is there anything that you've learned or even changed in terms of your communication and expectations of each other since that birthday? Seeing him do all these things, you being disappointed, but then kind of being able to talk it through. Are there things that you've changed in the way you approach each other because of that experience?
I would say yes. I think that in the past, he shared with me that he struggled with being open. And I think sometimes he has a very black and white way of thinking. And so just having more conversations and finding the gray together, because a lot of situations are very nuanced. And they're sometimes very hard to navigate. So I think just more open communication and trying to be open emotionally to the situation. It's a work in progress,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a good change.
Yeah, I always think of Disney movies. They always paint it out like, and then they just lived happily ever after. And the reality is, if you really care about somebody, you're there doing the work, and there's always
Right.
work, but it's you're committed to each other, and as long as you're still willing to do it, I think that says a lot about how you feel about each other. I always wish there was like a more realistic Disney movie. Like it would, I'm like, I want to see them fight and work it through.
Right. Have an argument. Just one argument
Yeah.
so I can see.
And I'm just curious, did you complain to the Airbnb? Did you get your money back? I was just like, ants, the pool was littered, like it was a hot mess. Did you have to clean up for them and then figure it out how to complain after?
So Jeffrey was like, make sure you take pictures of everything just in case they try to say that we did it. So I went around taking pictures of everything. I gave them a not terrible review on Airbnb after I left. But I definitely should have given them a lower rating because I had reached out to them about the things and they were like, make sure you don't give us a bad rating. And I was being nice, but I really should have gave them a
Hmm.
lower rating because when I say the pool was littered, I mean leaves, cups from the past party, the ants in the kitchen. I mean, all over the kitchen. We had no bug spray. There was nothing in the house for that. The stairwell, it was definitely dangerous. It was like hanging off the wall. So I went around like getting evidence because I was like, y'all are not going to pin this on me.
Yeah, and they totally would for sure. That's crazy. That's awful. I'm sure that didn't help though. You're uneasy about like the whole day and then you show up and it's not at all what you expected. I'm sure that didn't help with your feelings of doubt for the day in general.
Not at all.
I know you said you haven't shared your essay with your friends yet, but do you think that your friends noticed that you weren't enjoying the party? Did they share that they noticed?
Yeah, it was a mixed bag. Like, obviously, some of them were like, yeah, you were a little off. And then other people were like, I thought you were having fun. I think that some of them might have just been like caught up in their fun, which I love that for them. But
Really?
actually, a good number of people ended up staying the night at the Airbnb. And the next morning, I was kind of like making my rounds. And that's when I divulged that like, I didn't feel good about this party. Like this was not the party that I had 2 years ago. It just wasn't a good time for me. I said, I don't really think it's you. I think it was me. Like I think
Mhm.
wanting something to go like straight to plan or wanting to recreate something from 2 years ago, I think I needed to shift my expectations and my focus. So I let them know that it's not about them, but I did want to address it.
Yeah. Well, I think it says a lot about your friendships that you're able to share that with them and be vulnerable and say, as much as you guys were all having fun, it was just not great for me. And to have them be receptive and just be more concerned about you and not resentful in any way, that says a lot about the strong bonds you have. Speaking of expectations, we've all had moments where our expectations don't meet reality. So I'm curious if your experience with your birthday has impacted your sense of what it means to be happy in general or what you need now from a social setting to be happy. Maybe your interests have changed or your needs based on this experience. I'm curious where you feel today about happiness and enjoying the moment with friends.
Like the immediate day after, I was like, I'm never doing this again. I don't want to do anything for my birthday. I'm over it. Like, I'll see y'all when I see y'all. But then as time has gone on, I was like, that's childish. Because I love birthdays. I really appreciate birthdays. Everybody knows that like even if you want to just sit at home with a Walmart cake with some candles and we have a drink or two, that's celebrating your birthday. And I think people should be celebrated at least for one day of the year, even if you're shy about it. But I would say now that I can cultivate my own happiness, but I also have to be mindful of rigidity. I need it to be more go with the flow, a little bit more fluid about things. You can set the scene or whatever. Okay, like let's go to dinner. But then what happens before or after that, just kind of letting things ride. So I think that's where I am now. Because I think it's unrealistic for me to not do anything for my birthday.
Yeah. And you should. You definitely should celebrate your special day. It sounds like you're more open to, okay, maybe we'll do this, but if other things arise, I'm just going to wing it and still enjoy it, find my way to not let it bring me down. Well, it seems like you've had a lot of moments of introspection, internal work. I know you mentioned in your submission that you've been working to overcome perfectionism. And you said you're a recovering perfectionist. So I'd love to know more about how that journey has looked, what it means to you now, like where you feel on that perfectionist journey. I could definitely relate to being perfectionist. It does me no good most of the time.
It's counterintuitive after a certain point. Like, I would say it's a work in progress. I definitely think I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten older. But there are still moments like my birthday, or as you mentioned with the writing, like wanting it to be perfect and not being open to changes, or being so like this is what it's going to be, this is what it is, and this is what it has to be. Definitely getting better, but there are definitely moments where it sneaks back in, but it ends up just being more work for myself.
Have you noticed in the moments where you do let go of it, do you find that you have better writing or better experiences from it? Have you been able to collect evidence that it is actually better to not? Because it's tough. It's a tough thing to break, to not want it
Yes.
everything to be perfect.
Yes, I have gathered the evidence. Sometimes I definitely just feel more free in general. I think some of my best writing or my favorite moments have come from spontaneous things, or just letting things be how they're going to be.
Yeah, that's great. I always think of my grandmother and just other women that I know that have gotten older. I feel like now I'm in a place where I can see them and go, oh, I see how you got to this point at this age where you have no filter, you don't care. They have been through the wave of societal pressures on women and they've just kind of rejected it now in the end. It just seems so liberating. Oh, I want to get there before I'm 80. But it's just crazy. They just tell you what they think. They do whatever they want. They don't care if it's perfect or not.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Same, because my mom she's a baby boomer. So I've seen that even in my lifetime, where she's all put together. She has the dress with the jewelry, the heels. I mean, she was committed to heels every day for work. And I applaud her for
Wow,
that,
good for
because
her.
I will not. um, but now in her like late 60s, she is very much like loose cannon. I'm going to tell you how I feel. It doesn't matter if there's 10 people behind us in the grocery store. This person needs to hear what I have to say. So yeah, I agree.
I,
I feel like the sooner women can realize that, the better.
yes, I used to be like, Grandma, please stop. And now I'm like, just do you. Like, I love it. You don't care. And that's kind of amazing. Sometimes I wish they would care a little bit, but I'm just
Just a
like, you're
smidge.
free. You're free. I did have something else related to perfectionism. I'm curious, as a family nurse practitioner, if the experience of or letting go of perfection or the process of that has ever shown up in your work with your patients. Is that an area where you find it harder to let go of perfectionism, or has it actually helped you be a better nurse practitioner?
I would say it has shown up. I think particularly when I was in school, I was like, I need to have A's. But then it's like I eventually was like, you know what? Sometimes your best is not an A. So, if your best is a B or maybe even a C, like that was your best. I think I kind of carried that into practice, and getting comfortable with saying, I don't know. A lot of times patients will think that you have the encyclopedia in your brain. And it's like, no, I actually need to research this so I can give you the best care. And so I still fairly new to the profession, but I think that I'm getting more comfortable with I don't know, or pauses in the conversation. Sometimes not saying anything is also good too. The patient have time to think, also for me to gather my thoughts. So still a journey, but I think my patients also helped me to just be more open to the randomness of life.
I think it's so important to have women of color in the medical field because it's so hard as a patient. And I think it actually inspires more trust when someone says, I don't know, but I'm going to look it up and make sure I give you the best answer and not just any old answer so you'll get out of here. I've always found that I actually trust the person more. So if it's any consolation when you're having those moments. I'm pretty sure your patients feel the same, where they're like, okay, she doesn't know, but she's going to find out for me. And that makes me feel reassured. And that's important too. But that it's really great work. We definitely need more nurses and people who are willing. And it's not an easy job. So kudos to you. It's really hard to work in healthcare. We definitely do not appreciate our nurses enough.
Especially right now in this climate. I think a lot of people are nervous about what's going to happen or what's happened in the past. I think a lot of people don't trust the healthcare system. So I always tell them my hope is to give you back some of your autonomy. Like we are a partnership. You're leading and I'll be right there next to you. Or if you want me to follow, that's fine. I always want people to feel comfortable with me during the visit, but also after, feeling more informed, feeling more empowered about their body. So yeah, that's just my hope, my small piece to give back.
Yeah, it's really important, especially right now with women's health. It's a really tough time. I think that that feeling of autonomy is going to be so important because it's feeling so much like we're going to lose that. So I think having someone that you can see yourself represented in, and also who's telling you they're looking out for you to remain independent and have all of your and the best care probably makes more of a difference than you even realize on a day to day. So yeah, honestly, kudos to you. It's really great work.
Thank you.
Having gone through this birthday, it seems like you have a strong feeling of community in your life and something that you really care about. I'm curious if you have any hope for where you see your relationships or friendships growing in the next few years. I feel like when I talk to my friends, we all want to just like build houses together when we're 80 and live together. And I mean, it's probably not realistic, but I'm curious, having built this community, if there's something that you want to maintain in the next few years regarding them.
Yeah, I think we've also had that same thought of like, let's just buy houses on the same street and live next to each other. We've definitely had that thought. But I think more realistically, just like having more times together, carving out times for trips, or even just like FaceTime.
So, oh,
Just continuing to be intentional with our time as families grow or weddings or sometimes funerals, just being there for each other and leaning on each other because life is going to happen regardless.
it is. Yeah. Are there any specific changes that you've made since your birthday or in general to connect more meaningfully with each other?
Not really. We talk a bit more as far as texting. I try to make sure I text them at least once a week, even if they don't respond, just to say that I'm thinking about them or I thought about them this week. So I guess that would be the one change, but we've always kind of been close knit. So it's never a time where it's like, well, I didn't talk to you for a year or like 6 months. We're going to talk, within the month
Yeah.
or the next month.
Yeah. Are these friends that you have in Mississippi or are they in Georgia with you or are you all kind of?
We're kind of scattered. I
Mhm.
would say the bulk of people. Well, I can't even say the bulk of people. We're scattered.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens. Life happens. So, in your essay towards the end, you mentioned leaving behind the blueprints and strategies and embracing a more authentic type of enjoyment. I'm curious if you have any advice for people who might be struggling with over planning or people who might be in their own realization of how that ruins moments of joy, to not to work so much against just being spontaneous.
I would say let go of the aesthetic. Let it be what it's going to be. If you have mismatched cups and plates, who cares? Like, just have fun. You don't need a grass wall to have a nice birthday party or a nice event. I think the people matter most and creating more memories that truly will last a lifetime. But just letting go of wanting things to be like all perfect. We got to get the perfect pose. We got to make sure we do this challenge. Just be in the moment. Just be present.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. The grass wall. I mean, they get you with these ads though. They will get you to buy all sorts of craziness.
Yes.
As I continue to grow the Her Own Words community, I'd love to hear from you if there's one piece of advice that you would want to share with other women or a piece of advice that you wish you had known when you were younger.
I think the top one for me, because it kind of ties into the perfectionism, would be to just feel what you feel, right? Obviously, don't stay down if you can, but if you feel like you need therapy or something, go do that too. Because
Mhm.
I think therapy has helped me a lot. But yeah, just feel the emotions as they come. Emotions are not bad. I think for a long time, which is why I put off going to therapy, I didn't want to deal with my emotions. I just was like, you know what? I shouldn't be feeling this way, right? Like I feel like I need to have a certain look about me, or people will perceive me as this, or I can't be sad because my friend is going through something. But I think that's a part of vulnerability, transparency, building good connections and friendships is by just feeling the emotions, whether it's you're crying with your friend or you're frustrated about something, just feel it. Like I said, I'm always an advocate for therapy.
Yes, yes, me too. And I think the awareness of that things can coexist. You know, you can be supportive for someone, but also feel sad. You can have a good day,
Right.
but also a bad one. And it's just, it's all pieces of you. I think that's really great advice. Because I think my experience, at least, is that women are raised to just be really strong, kind of keep it together, and it doesn't always allow for us to fall apart. Sometimes we can't. There's a lot on our shoulders, but I think it is, as you said, important to feel everything and to seek out support if you need it. There's no shame in getting outside support. There's still a big stigma around mental health support, and hopefully we can break it down. I am curious, as a final question, if there's anyone that you admire, it can be anyone in the world, and why.
I would say my mom. We she raised me, so we've had our own ups and downs, our struggles when my teenage years hit. But I think I can fully appreciate her now and the things that she has taught me. And appreciate her reactions that I might have felt at the time that it was like, oh, this is too much, it's excessive. But I think she wanted to protect me. And that she loves me. She has gone through a lot in her life. I think there are a lot of unresolved things, but I understand that she's a human. I can see her now. She was a person before I came along. She was a woman living. Um,
Hmm.
and I think I give more grace to her now by realizing that about her. And I think that she's learned things from me. I think that her opinions about certain things within the world have shifted because of me and the friends that I have. And so I can appreciate her for who she is, but also for her growth. So yeah, I would say is my top person that I aspire to be. I hope to
Hmm.
always be fluid in thinking, open to different ideas. I'm kind of trying to have the who cares attitude now. She taught me that from a young age.
Good for
Um,
you. Good.
I'm trying. It's hard.
It is. It is. But she sounds incredible.
For sure. She's experienced a lot in her life, but she has really overcome a lot of things.
Wow, good for her. And I'm also just equally impressed that she was wearing heels all over the place.
For
Maybe I
sure.
should try to channel your mom a little too.
No,
That's amazing.
I like my tennis shoes. She got the heels.
Well, you're like seeing patients. I totally get that. But that's great. I think we all have our tough teenage years with our moms. But there's just an appreciation that comes with getting older and seeing their point of view more. It seems like you've gotten there and you have a much stronger relationship for it. So that's great. Well, I'll say thank you for being on the show. And this has been great.